Welcome back. It's time to complete yet another project. Welcome back. It's been a while. I'm back up in Illinois and I'm down in the larder root cellar area, if you remember that. I'm underground. It's probably 92, 93 degrees outside, about 74 degrees in here, kind of nice. But I have a project to do today to separate the root cellar from the larder. We have a previous video that shows us building these shelves, but you'll notice in this picture how wet the floor is. That's because we had intended to separate the larder, a cool dry space, from the root cellar and a gravel floor that would be a cool and moist place. Unfortunately, we did not get this separated in time and mold and mildew began to set in pretty substantially. Well, we had to disassemble these shelves, take them out back, and then we had to pressure wash and bleach and pressure wash and bleach and pressure wash and do it over and over again. So first of all, we shouldn't have left it unseparated. And second of all, we should have treated the wood before we put it down there. It would have been much better. But it actually came out pretty clean, and then we ended up soaking these items in the sun for a good 2 solid days. Meanwhile, my little girl Kyla had to entertain herself somehow. Okay, back to work. Now, here's the door that we were going to put between the larder and the root cellar, and the space on the left is going to be filled with a cinder block wall. So one thing you'll notice about this is obviously the ceiling is slanted. It's about a 7.5 degree slope, and so when that brick touches up here, obviously it's not going to hit here. So I'm going to have to cut the top bricks at the same angle as the roof in order that I can get the entire thing enclosed. For this project, I'm going to be putting a block wall right here with a frame and a door right here so I can go from the larder to the root cellar. Now these blocks, I crawled into the tick-infested woods to pull these out. They were in an old stack. And I had to clean them off, and I had to pressure wash some of them to get the dirt and the moss off of them. But they should work just fine. This is going to be a non-supporting wall, so it's going to be hollow block, no concrete in the middle. Don't need a whole bunch of rebar and things like that. So the one issue we have is I have to go out 41.5 inches. And typically when you stagger the blocks, you cut 1.5. Well, actually, I can't cut it at 8 inches. I need to cut it at 9.25, but I'll still have stagger as I go up the wall. It just won't be actually halfway down the brick, but it should provide the stability that we need. What I've got here are 2 pieces of wood clamped together and equal at the bottom. And what I did was I put screws every 8 inches so I can separate these pieces of wood, attach them to either side of the root cellar, and tie string between these screws that will keep my courses level and on measurement as I go up the wall. This wall is going on a 4-inch concrete slab, and what I want to do is make sure that it's perfectly vertical. So I've got a laser line going here, and I am setting this 1 inch off the edge to account for the door frame there and the threshold on the door. And so I'm drawing a line on the ground as well as up the wall and on the ceiling with this laser. Okay, we got the mortar. We're gonna mix it in a bucket because we can't fit a wheelbarrow down here, but I've got a mixer on my drill. There's my block. I've got my string set for the first course, and we are ready to go. Well, I'm certainly not a mason by any stretch of the imagination, but as you can see here, after the first couple of courses, things went relatively smoothly. Now, I did not clean the entire block. I cleaned only the edge where the mortar was touching. And as it turns out, it gave it a very antiquated look with some of the moss still on there, so I kind of like that feature. Now, we also had to stop at the top because I had those angular pieces I needed to cut, so we waited for those. Who's your friend? You don't even know his name?
Johnny Park. Johnny Park.
Johnny Park?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I went outside a couple of blocks here. This is the angle of the ceiling. So this is going to be the last course right here. And then the next course is going to actually start with this little guy. And there's going to be one more piece at the end, but I want to wait to cut that until I find out the exact shape, because it's going to be a more difficult cut. There's my line up there. And if we look down here, you see my line down here. Well, the wall is done and it looks pretty good. I had to cut pieces at the top. They kind of follow the roof line. Not perfect, but it's not professional work anyway. The next thing I have to do is I have to put some 2x6s here and here to be like king studs for the door frame. But we're going to let this set for a little bit before I drill some holes into there. Well, I had to wait for the building inspector to give the A-OK before I could move on, and she passed me. Well, you should always measure twice and cut once. So I actually set the door in there to make sure my 2x lumber would fit all around. Then I built the frame, set it in place, and I was ready to do the final sizing to fill in the gaps. Okay, long hard day. We now have the door frame in, okay? So this is using Tapcons right into the cinder block, and this screws directly into the Fox block. There happens to be a stud right behind this, so it lined up perfectly with the doorway. So now we just need to put the door in, square it up, and it's a job. You'll remember in the beginning that I left a 1-inch setback from the concrete. That was to allow the door frame and the molding basically to not hang over into space, as well as make sure that the threshold was solidly on that concrete. You'll notice the gravel here. That's where the moisture came up, and that's what we're trying to prevent from going to the other side of the door. But in the end, I still have a gap in the top, and I had to basically close that gap with more wood and insulation. Now my inspector inspected it, and she was exhausted after that. Well, another project down. We're pretty excited about that. We're actually going to leave everything out of that room for quite some time to see if it was effective at keeping the moisture out of there. So please subscribe, leave a comment. We love to hear and read those comments, and we'll see you next time.